Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Jarvis. You are with me on my IG, my FB, and on YouTube, and it's still Jarvis TV. So, what's up to everybody out there in the world? We're having today's been a great day. It's Tuesday. I know I'm on a little bit later than normal, but I had some technical difficulties, got those things handled, and we're up and we're running. So, tonight's conversations, we are still in those emotions, all about emotions. However, we are going to tap into something that I think is going to be beneficial to everybody. Last night we had the battle of the sexes. So if you missed it, you got to go back and watch it because there was some very great information that was given last night. Tonight, what we're talking about is body language. Your body talks. Your body talks. Our bodies talk. Body talks. And we're going to talk about how and why that's important. And in talking about how and why it's important, I think and I believe that there's going to be some great things that people are going to be able to take from what we talk about tonight. And I want to encourage you to get involved in the conversation. Please do get involved in the conversation. As a matter of fact, if you were on YouTube or Facebook, I'm actually dropping in the chat right now uh, the link for you to request to join, and I will allow you to come up and we can have a great conversation. You can communicate live with me, and people will hear us across the platforms. If you're on IG, all you got to do is just hit that camera button, the request to join, and we can jump in and have a great conversation. So again, like I said, and I mentioned this last night, I am going to be giving some stuff away tonight. So if you were here last night, then you know that I announced that I have a partnership with these masks, baby, big baby, with the Henry mask. Did I get that? Yeah, with the Henry mask. You see it. You see it. Different colors are available, but right now, I'm just gonna give some of these away. You got your go do something white. You got your go do something gray. You got your go do something blue, and you got your go do something black on gray on black. So I will be announcing like how you can get that later on in the show or in the live tonight, and I will be asking you to DM me or text me, and the number that you're going to text me at is that 386-200-1394. And I'm very excited to be able to share that with you. I also will be giving away a book to someone who has not gotten a book and would like to dive in on the book. I've been getting some great feedback from the book. Co-authored a book called Dear Fear Man, and it's been out for about a year now, or just over a year, and it's a powerful book. And every person who has purchased the book that I get the feedback from, they are absolutely moved. They're absolutely just there. It's impacted them in a positive way. So getting in on tonight's conversation, please definitely feel free to jump in and get involved with the conversation as well. I definitely want you to get in and be involved with the conversation because it's going to be a great one. And we're going to be talking about, like I said, matter of fact, let's just dive into it. How and why it's important to read body language, our body talks. So, what most of us don't realize, because we have so many avenues to communicate with each other now, is that the avenues of communication that we have right now, like if I was to ask you, what do you feel is the best way to communicate with people? Like what gives people the fullest understanding of talking to you? Most people would say, I would prefer somebody giving me a phone call, having an actual call. That way I can hear the tone in their voice, and I can understand exactly what it is that they're trying to convey to me. Others will say that, oh, I would rather have an email, because if you just give me an email, I can read it, and whether or not I want to finish it off, I don't, it's up to me whether or not I want to finish it off. I don't have to sit there and listen to you all the way. Others are text communicators, or say like, text message is the best way to communicate with me. It's the best way to reach me. Now, what I will say is there are ways that are better to reach someone just to get their attention, but there's really one true way to have the best level of communication with each other. And that's a combination of two communication styles. So text, DMs, IG, emails, those are great to get somebody's attention and start a conversation. Businesses will use emails all the time because it's a way to reach hundreds, if not thousands of people with the same message at one time. We also follow the same thing when we go into our own uh, our communications through social media, because we're reaching thousands of people at one time. for me right now, the best way to communicate this is for me to allow you to be able to see me and hear me, so that way you're operating in two different communication styles. Now, the two communication styles that I said that work best together are communication, of vocal communication, and our nonverbal cues. Those are the two most important ways to be able to convey a true message to somebody and how it is that you feel. And there's going to be people that are going to say, "Oh, I don't agree with that." Well, let me help you understand. Have you ever sent a text message to somebody and they just totally took it the wrong way and came back at you, and you're like, "What in the world just happened? Like, what did I say? What did I do?" Well, the reason for that is because in a text message, as in an email, things get lost in translation. And what I mean by that is that person translating the words from the paper or the screen to their mind, there's something that gets lost. And the thing that gets lost is the emotional content behind what it is that you're trying to convey. They're reading it and they're actually putting their own voice of what you would sound like saying it to them in their mind, which will then cause them to perceive it the wrong way, which causes them to react in a way where they're angry at you and they're popping off at you. Or have you ever had, let's look at it like this. Have you ever had a boss or a leader send you an email, and when they sent you that email, what they were trying to convey to you was a message of support, a message of hope, but it came across as, they were talking down to you and they were belittling you. I mean, I've been there, so I'm pretty sure that there's others out here that have been there, and that's why that's not necessarily the best way of communication. It's the best way to alert, say, "Hey, this is where we at," boom, boom, boom. But it's not necessarily the best way to communicate back and forth. Let's take it even deeper. What about in dating relationships, marriages? What's a better way to communicate? Is it better for you to communicate through text messages back and forth, that person that you're dating or that you're married to or in your relationship with? Or is it better to just pick up the phone and have a conversation so that you can hear their voice? I would say, hey, it's better to pick up the phone and have a conversation so that I can hear their voice. And I know that there's some of you that are watching me and they're like, well, but I don't always have time for all that. Very true. So you have to communicate with somebody enough with with your vocal voice, like with the audible voice of who you are, so that they understand when they see the text message come across what you're saying, or at least they can pull in the right tone of what you're saying. Now, of all of the languages that have been around, it is said that human speech is not the one that has been around the longest. That's what science would say. It is said that we started off and our nonverbals were the biggest and the best way for us to communicate with each other, which is our body language, which is, our facial expressions, which is our hand movements. That's what it said. Now, me personally, I believe that our physical speech has been around since the inception or the creation of who we are. But that's just because I'm a man of faith. And I believe that God created the heavens and the earth, and that he created man and woman in his image and in his likeness, and that he had conversations with them. So there was some communication that went on. That's just what I believe. So that's neither here nor there. It's a small thing to a giant. So don't get your head wrapped around that and try to focus on that. Let's just look at the fact that those two modes of communication, the audible voice and your nonverbal cues, are two things that have been around forever. Like in my Sandlot voice, forever. Okay. So now looking at this, knowing that our body language and our communication are two of the world's, like, our longest lasting, longest living communication styles that are out there, or languages that are out there, I want to break down what body language is so that we're all on the same page when I'm talking about this body language. And it's important because, ladies, there's times when a man will perceive that your body is talking the way that he wants it to be talking to him, and you're not talking to him in that way. And it's because he's missing something in there, right? And vice versa. Fellas, there's times where ladies, they perceive that your body is talking in a way that you ain't trying to talk, and it gets us in trouble, right? So if we can break this down and we can understand it, it'll help us not just on a partner bonding level, but more importantly, in a successful life, success in our families, success in our relationships with our children, with our spouses, with our friends. But the biggest thing is the success in a social atmosphere, i.e. work, your job, networking, like that will really take you to the next level. It will really help you out in a major way. So body language, here's the definition of body language. It's communication through our posture, right? Communication through our gestures, right? And communication through our eye movements. Okay, so I just did all of those, and there's other things that go along with our body language, but essentially it's our nonverbal cues that convey our emotions and convey information. Now there was we know this guy. His name is Charles Darwin. If you don't know Charles Darwin, who Charles Darwin was, he is the guy who kind of came up with the evolution theory. Like he's the survival of the fittest was his whole thing. Talking about how creatures will evolve to adapt to their environment, and it's those ones that are the strongest and the fittest that will survive as they adapt. A great assessment, a great study, and a great thing to deliver to the world, because there is a lot of truth in everything that he said. Right now, the other thing is that he said that people inherit the facial expressions that they use in daily life. So we inherit those facial expressions that we use in daily life, which then it proves, or it agrees with saying that body language is important. Our body language helps us communicate what's going on with us to people, if they're paying attention, if they're listening. And the reason I say if they're paying attention and if they're listening, because if they're not paying attention and they're not missing, then they're going to miss it completely. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely been that person to miss it completely. All right. So body language is not just the language, one of the longest living languages out there. It's also a universal language. When you don't speak the same language verbally as somebody, meaning like a person is from Japan and you are from the United States, and you're trying to communicate and you don't understand each other, there are signals and signs that you can give as body language to help you to communicate with that person. And that is a good thing. Now, the reason why that's a good thing is because it allows us to communicate on a level beyond our words, for people to perceive what it is that we need and what we want. We see this most commonly in relationships between parents and toddlers. A toddler doesn't have the words to say what they want. So when a parent can identify what's going on with their children, and they can look at it and they can say, "Whoa, hey, hold up now. You're hungry. Oh man, little man's he's angry. Oh man, he's tired." Those cues aren't coming from the child coming to you and being like, "I'm hungry," because I'm hungry for an infant toddler comes out like, "Wah, ah," which is what it is. But then as they get older and they can communicate with their words, then as parents speak to them, they start saying, "Give me your words. Use your words. Use your words." When it comes to another way that we utilize our non-social cues, and if we pay attention to it, it can be like in a parent to, let me tell you just like this, in a parent to a child, the man, in a parent to a child, that can mean the difference between life and death, survival. In friendships and partnerships, body language is critical to the building of those relationships, and it could be the difference between life and death. And I'll tell you why. Because in a parent to a child, if you don't know that a child is going through something, or they're hurting with something, or there's something that's affecting them, and you don't pay attention to it, then it could be life threatening. That child could die. In relationships, the reason why it's critical to relationships is because you're paying attention, and you can tell when your partner needs a hug. You can tell when your partner needs a kiss. You can tell when your friend needs to hear a joke. You can tell when your friend, because you're looking at their body language. You're not listening to just their voice, but you're paying attention to their social cues, and their social cues are showing you that they're sad. Their social cues are showing you that they're dealing with some things. Their social cues are showing you that they need something, and you can help them with that. And as you're talking to them, you may be the one to help them change their mind from making a horrible decision. Okay. So I just want to throw that out there. Now, in looking at this, when I said that this has been around forever, we as human beings, we've been reading each other and communicating like with each other with our body language forever, as long as we've been alive. And that's why I went back and talked about a child to a parent. because there's things, we see it all the time. And it's even more important now to pay attention to body language because we have this beautiful thing called television, and we have these beautiful things called cameras that we can set up in our offices, and we have these phones that we can talk through and communicate to each other. We have laptops and other devices that we can see each other and we can talk to each other. And it's important to pay attention to the body language, because if you're paying attention to the body language, a person may be smiling up here, but if they just kind of like slunched over, and then you can tell, okay, you're trying too hard. What's going on with you, right? You can have those conversations with people. But if you think about what I just said about television, um, I was thinking back to when they were announcing some of the things in the trials that just took place. So let's go to the George Floyd trial. When they were announcing the verdict for Chauvin, um, he had a very stoic look. Like he was very just in his face. He just showed no emotion whatsoever. His posture was just, and I remember listening to the news broadcasters talk, and as they were talking, they said things like, it looks as though he has no remorse. He's not showing any emotion. He's da 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 da. And they're getting all of this from his facial expressions as well as his posture in his body. When you looked at the kid, was it Kyle Rittenhouse? He was very, very in his posture and in his voice. He was like, he showed remorse for the things that happened. You could see it, you could hear it, and he like when they announced that he was not guilty, he showed the like just the overwhelming gratitude of like, oh my God, my life is still mine. Like he lost himself. Now let's move into talking about the Ahmaud Arbery case. When they announced those things, each person had their own posture. There was a stoic look. And you can look in their face and see what was going on. You can look at their body posture and tell, okay, scared, hurt, angry. You can see these things. We notice these things because of the body language, because of us being able to see. Now, here's another thing that I want to throw out there as far as body language. Body language is so essential to your growth that you need to learn how to read it. There was a study that was done by a gentleman. I think his name was Albert Todorov, or Todorov, and he's a professor of psychology at Princeton. He did a study, and what he did is he talked about how, in this study, he talked about how people for the longest time have believed that they can understand and read what a person is thinking and what they're saying and how they're feeling just based off of looking them in their face and having that conversation. But the reality is they miss all of the social cues that are being given off in the body language, not just the facial expressions, but how are their shoulders postured? How are they moving? How are their hands moving? How are they sitting in the chair? These are things that we need to be aware of, because in doing so, there are certain things that are going to stand out, that need to stand out, but then there's other things that that we need to pay attention to, that will help us make good decisions or better decisions on whether or not we want to bring somebody onto our team, whether or not we want to allow somebody to date our daughter or date our son, whether or not we want to allow our children to go with another adult, whether or not we want to go to the party or not go to the party, based off of what's the body language, whether or not we should get in that car with them or not, based off of their body language and their communication. Okay, so there's so many things that are lost. And the crazy thing about that is there was another professor of psychology at UCLA. His name is Albert. I'm sorry, I wrote it down so I can say it right. Albert Marabio, or Merhabio. He did a study, and in his study, he found that in delivering a message, 7% of a message that you're delivering to somebody is that's your verbal. That's the things that are coming out of your mouth, right? Then 38% is your vocal, and what your vocal part of your delivery is it's your tones. So you guys have been listening to me, you've been watching me, and you have heard my verbal, which is the information that's coming out. That's 7% of the information that I'm giving you. That's 7% of what you're receiving, 7% of what's being given. And then you're listening to the tones in my voice, which are adding that 38%. So you have that 38%. That means that there's 45% of what's happening right now that's contributing to you taking this message in, right? Now, the 55% that is not there is the nonverbal cues. Those nonverbal cues are the way that I sit back in my chair, the way that I lean up in my chair, the way that I put my hands at my side, the way that I cross my hands as I talk, or point at the screen, or squint my eyes, or smile, or my eyebrows may raise. All of these things are the nonverbal cues that help convey the message. Let me give you an example. Um, what if Have you ever had a speaker who got up, and as they got up, they when you saw them, they had a look like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. Then they got up and they started speaking. And as they started speaking, whether this was for a business, whether it was for an organization, whether it was for just somebody talking to you and your family, as they were talking, you're listening to what they're saying and it sounds good, but you've picked up on the non-verbal cues, which are telling you this person, they don't believe what they're saying. They don't believe what they're talking about. They don't believe in what they're trying to sell me. They don't believe in what they're trying to teach me. They don't know the information as well as I thought they knew the information. They're just reading off of a script. How many times does that happen to you? Just a question, just something to think about. Now, understanding this is important. Why is it important? Because if you can understand how to read body language, it can help you and it'll keep you from getting hurt. If you don't know how to read it, it can hurt you and sabotage you because you'll be playing on somebody's talking to you and they're fast talking you and they're telling you all the things that you want to hear, but their body language is not lining up with what their words are saying. You have the ability to pick up on these body language things. There's times when you'll be talking to someone and they'll say something and it just doesn't quite line up. Well, it's their nonverbal cues that they're giving you that's telling you like, hey, this is what's not lining up. And it's not about like if you're on the phone, that's different. That's discernment. That's you just listening to them and hearing things in their voice, the tones, the vocals, where you're like, I'm not sure about that. Or just in your mind, you're doubting what they're saying. But then in the nonverbal cues, when you're sitting and you're talking to somebody, that's why I said the best way of communication is to sit and be able to see each other and communicate. Like so you can see the nonverbals, the body language, the back and forth, like what's necessary to really make a full assessment on whatever you need to make an assessment on in the conversation. And that's important. That's very, very, very important. So just wanted to like really hit on that because we miss it sometimes. Even in my notes, and I'm just looking down right now, it says understanding how reading body language helps or hurts us is as useful as it's as useful as a tool. Or basically, it's an extremely useful tool for relationship building and you having success in the workplace. So when you are dealing and you're looking at this body language piece and understanding your body talks, it's about you understanding the entire picture, having a holistic view. You want to be successful in the workplace, start understanding people's body language. Start looking like I know that there's and let me help you out. Like there's a way that people greet each other where it shows like I'm ready for this. If you're walking into an interview, it's the firm handshake. Sometimes people are too firm. They squeeze so tight, they feel like they're breaking their hand. It's the shoulders upright and the posture, the smile to say, hey, I'm confident about this. Then when you sit down in the interview, that's when your body language really starts talking. You can tell if a person's confident in an interview or not once they sit down, because once they sit down, then they start sweating and then they start voice cracking and shaking. And you're catching all these things, and that's where you start to lose them. Now, one thing that I can say is in my experience, one of the things that helped me along the way as I was growing in in the business or in the company and promotion and level to level and getting all these things like moving forward in the company is every time I had a conversation with a superior, I was very confident. I was always myself. I always smiled and I knew that I was ready. If I didn't feel like I was ready, I actually had to stop for a moment and think about all the things that helped me qualify to be in the seat where I was at so that mentally I can get myself back to that space where I was ready, because I needed every part of me to be able to communicate to them that, yes, you got the right person and this is what I'm doing. When I talk about if I made a decision on something, being confident in the decision that you made and not shrugging back. There's ways that you can hurt yourself by making a decision and somebody comes to you and they're like, well, why'd you make that decision? And you're like, like Homer Simpson backing into the trees. It happens. I've done that in plenty of conversations. I know that there's in a workspace, my confidence comes across like really quickly. And sometimes in private conversations, because I have to process what's being said and I'm thinking about more than just me. I'm thinking about whoever it is that I'm speaking with, the emotions behind what we're talking about, like, and I'm not looking for the right answer, because the right answer is the true answer, right? So what you're looking for is, you're looking for, okay, how do I present this to them where it's not just received, but it's also perceived the right way, so that we can have a great conversation. That's the importance of understanding your body language, because you can say something, but if your body language is struggling back, then you're going to lose the person or the audience that you're communicating with. So when you say something, you need to be confident in what it is that you're saying. Now, here's a good thing to remember as well. There are some people who have mastered having a confident posture and a confident way of communicating with each other, right? In the workspace, they will say something to you, and you'll be like, yo, that must be the truth. I have a friend that this man said something to me, and when he said it, the way he said it, I had to go back and research it again to make sure that I didn't read the information wrong. And then when I read the information, I was like, man, I was right. So I had a conversation with him. I was like, bro, you're totally wrong with what you're saying. But you won't be able to do that unless you utilize body language. Body language helps you understand the full context of a conversation. There was a study that was done. I want to say it was like in the 2010, I think. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Albert Mirabile. And yeah, it was Albert Mirabile. And what they did, him and some of his friends from other universities, they did this research, and they studied people, and they gave them pictures, right? And this is why it's important to look at everything. They gave them pictures of people's expressions, and it was just their face, and they asked them to tell them if the person was excited, happy, angry, hurt, or I can't remember. There was another one, but basically, or tired. So based off of just looking in their face, then they took those same pictures, and they showed them the picture of not just the person's face, but the person's face and their body, and asked them, okay, let's now tell me what you think it is. The people were, I think, 80% of the people ended up answering the correct way when they saw the full body, as opposed to when they just saw the pictures of the faces. And then they went back and asked the people who just saw the pictures of the faces, and asked them, and they said, well, I just made an educated guess based off of what I thought my face would look like in that situation, what I would be thinking if that was my facial expression. So even in that, they went back and they calculated not just what their facial expression would be, but what their body posture would be in those moments, to be able to identify what it was that they were communicating. So when you can identify and pay attention to people's the facial expressions, the tones, the vocal, and the body language of an individual, it'll give you the full context of the emotions that a person is trying to convey to you. And if you're not familiar with context is the like what is actually happening. It's like, if you think about when you read a textbook, it's called a textbook because there's text that's in there, and you're reading that, and you're understanding what's being taught to you by not just reading one sentence, but you're reading the things that come before that sentence and the things that come after that sentence. And that sentence is the main point, but it's everything on top and everything on the bottom that drives that main point home. That's the same thing that happens when we look at people and we identify what's going on with them through their body language. Once you tap in and you connect with the person in their body language, then that will help you in your communication styles and to help you take things to the next level. So, man, there's so much more that I want to give you tonight, but what I'm going to do is I'm not going to give it all to you tonight, because I started later than normal, and I want to honor the time. And so we will be back tomorrow. I may tap into this a little bit, because there's things that I want to tell you about making first impressions, and there's things that I want to tell you about when you sit in an interview. There's things that I want to help you understand as it comes to having conversations with your children, having conversations with your spouse, body language, and we'll probably tap into some other things, like things that we have in place that help us perfect our body language and our ability to, our reading body language and our ability to take things to the next level. So I will be back tomorrow evening. All right. And we will be back on here. Like I said, I got started a little late tonight, so I'm going to get out of here a little bit earlier, or actually cut this short so that we don't stay on here too long, but we will get through it, and there's going to be some great stuff tomorrow. So come back and join me tomorrow. And you know what I'm going to do is the first person, I see you, Tasha Renee, and I see you, Desiree. I see you guys both just jumped on. We will be back on tomorrow evening at 9:30 to both of you. I see Desiree over here on IG. I see Tasha Renee over here. Cool. Happy Tuesday to you too, Tasha Renee. But so what I'm going to do is the first person who DMs me, or no matter of fact, the first person to text me at 386-200-1394, I will give you one of these Henry masks, the Go Do Something mask. Yes, still living high off of this partnership. So love y'all. And I want you guys to have a good night, and we'll come back out tomorrow night, and we'll make sure that we're on time tomorrow night. We'll have a good conversation. I want you to be a part of the conversation. As a matter of fact, Tasha Renee, if you can make sure that you join tomorrow, I need you to go ahead and go ahead and get there. And I see people. Hey, listen, you want to text, even if you think that you're not the first one. I want you to text. All right, Bree. Good night, Miss Lady. Thank you so much for your message. I appreciate it so much. It definitely touched my heart, warmed my heart, and it lets me know that we're doing things the right way and heading in the right direction. So, hey, love y'all. We will see you guys tomorrow evening. Have a good night. Holla at your boy. Peace.